For 300 years, humanity had played by the rules. They joined the Galactic Council as a young species, humble and eager to learn. The Council welcomed them with open arms but closed fists. Earth was given the worst trade agreements. Human ships were stopped and searched at every checkpoint. Human colonies were placed on barren worlds while other species received paradise planets. And through it all, humanity smiled and nodded and said thank you. Ambassador had spent 40 years serving Earth's interests on the Council station. She had watched her predecessors beg for scraps. She had seen human merchants cheated in open markets while Council security looked away. She had attended funerals for human colonists who died because emergency supplies were delayed by bureaucratic nonsense, and she had remained calm through all of it. They were the oldest species on the Council. They had blue skin, 4 arms, and an ego that stretched across galaxies. High Counselor X had ruled for 2,000 years, and he believed humans were little more than clever animals who had stumbled upon space travel by accident. He made no secret of his feelings. There were warriors who had conquered half the galaxy before the Council formed. They respected strength and nothing else. To them, humans were soft creatures who had never proven themselves in real battle. The fact that humanity had survived countless wars on their own planet meant nothing. Those were just humans fighting humans. Child's play. There were traitors and spies. They controlled most of the Council's economy and used that power to keep everyone in debt. Earth owed them trillions in credits for technology that other species received for free. Every time humanity tried to renegotiate, they added more fees and penalties. These 3 species formed the Inner Council. They made all the real decisions while pretending the other 47 member species had a voice. And for 3 centuries, they had kept humanity firmly at the bottom of the hierarchy. Everything changed on what humans would later call the Day of Truth. Stood in the Great Chamber as High Counselor X announced new sanctions against Earth. Human ships would now be banned from the 7 richest trade routes. Human colonies would pay triple taxes to fund Council military operations. And worst of all, Earth would be required to hand over their technology, a revolutionary energy source called the Helix Drive, without compensation. The Helix Drive was humanity's greatest achievement. It could generate unlimited clean energy from quantum fluctuations. Earth's scientists had worked for 80 years to perfect it. The technology would have finally given humanity economic independence from the Council. Listened to the announcement with her hands clasped behind her back. She thought about her grandmother, who had served as ambassador before her, and had died believing that patience would eventually earn humanity respect. She thought about her daughter, who worked on a mining colony where Council inspectors regularly confiscated their best ore. She thought about the billions of humans who worked twice as hard as any other species and received half the reward. When X finished speaking, he looked down with a smile that showed all 4 rows of his teeth. He expected her to bow and accept the terms, as every human ambassador had done before her. Instead, took a deep breath and spoke words that would echo through history. She said no. The chamber went silent. No species had ever refused a direct Council mandate. The general leaned forward with sudden interest. The trade master dropped his data pad. X's smile disappeared. Continued speaking. She said that humanity had come to the Council seeking partnership and had found only chains. She said that Earth had given everything and received nothing. She said that the Council had mistaken human patience for weakness and human kindness for submission. Then she delivered the message that changed everything. She told them that humanity had not been idle during these 300 years. While they smiled and nodded and paid their unfair taxes, they had been building. Deep beneath the oceans of Earth, hidden in the asteroid belts, scattered across 100 secret colonies, humanity had constructed a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Council members laughed. They reminded her that Earth's official military was tiny compared to the Armada. They pointed out that humanity had never won a single war in the galactic arena, smiled and asked them why they thought humanity had never fought. She told them it was because Earth had been waiting, watching, learning. They had studied every species, every technology, every battle tactic. They had adapted and improved everything they encountered. The Council had given humanity access to their greatest secrets, and humanity had used that knowledge wisely. High Counselor X demanded proof of these claims. He called a liar and a fool. He threatened to have her arrested for treason against the Council. Simply raised her hand and pressed a button on her communication device. The great windows of the chamber overlooked the Council station's main docking area. Through those windows, the assembled representatives watched as space itself seemed to tear open. Ships emerged from tiers in reality, hundreds of them, then thousands. These were not the small trading vessels that carried Earth's meager exports. These were warships, massive and bristling with weapons that the Council had never seen before. The ships kept coming. They filled the space around the station until the stars themselves disappeared behind walls of human steel. And still more arrived, jumping in from every direction, demonstrating a mastery of faster-than-light travel that should have taken another millennium to develop. Watched the fear spread across the faces of the Council members. The general was already calculating the odds and finding them unacceptable. The trade master was trying to figure out how he could profit from this new reality. And High Counselor X finally understood that he had made a terrible mistake. Spoke again. She explained that humanity did not want war. They had never wanted war. All they had ever wanted was fairness, respect, and the chance to stand as equals among the stars. But if the Council forced them to fight, they would fight, and they would win. She gave the Council 1 hour to revoke all sanctions against Earth. She demanded equal trade rights, fair representation, and the immediate release of all human assets seized under unjust laws. She required a formal apology to be broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. X tried to call her bluff. He ordered the fleet to engage the human ships. The battle lasted 11 minutes. They were the greatest warriors in galactic history. They had conquered empires and crushed rebellions. Their ships were powerful and their crews were fearless. None of it mattered. Human weapons cut through shields like they were not there. Human ships moved with impossible speed and precision. Human tactics changed and adapted faster than they could respond. Within minutes, half the fleet was disabled or destroyed. The rest retreated in confusion. Watched the battle from the chamber window. She felt no joy in the destruction, only a grim satisfaction that humanity's long patience had finally paid off. The Council surrendered within the hour. In the days that followed, the galaxy learned the truth about humanity. They learned that humans were not soft because they avoided conflict. They were soft because they remembered what they were capable of and chose to be gentle instead. They learned that human scientists had not just counseled technology. They had improved it in ways that the original inventors had never imagined. The helix drive was just one of dozens of breakthroughs that humanity had kept hidden. They learned that human soldiers were not untested because they lacked skill. They were untested because human commanders had studied every war in galactic history and concluded that most of them were unnecessary. Humanity had been preparing for the one war that might matter. Most importantly, they learned that human kindness was not a weakness to be exploited. It was a gift that had been offered freely, and the Council had chosen to reject it. Ambassador became the first human to sit on the Inner Council. She used her position to fight for the rights of every species that had been oppressed by the old order. Within a decade, the Galactic Council was transformed from a tool of the powerful into a true democracy. The and the lost their special status. They complained bitterly about this injustice, never recognizing the irony of their words. They were forced to compete on equal terms with species they had once considered inferior. Earth became the center of a new galactic alliance. Human ships carried goods and ideas to every corner of the galaxy. Human doctors developed cures for diseases that had plagued other species for. Human artists created works of beauty that made even the most ancient civilizations weep with wonder. The galaxy entered a golden age that would last for 10,000 years. And it all began because one species decided they had been patient long enough. Historians would later debate whether humanity's hidden fleet was always intended as a threat or simply as insurance against an uncertain future. They would analyze speech and argue about whether she had planned every word or simply spoken from her heart. They would write countless books about the 11 minutes that changed everything. But the people who lived through those times knew a simpler truth. They knew that humanity had always wanted peace. They knew that Earth had tried everything possible to avoid conflict. And they knew that when peace was no longer an option, humanity had proven that they were worthy of the stars. The Council pushed too hard, and Earth finally responded. It was not a response born of anger or pride or a desire for revenge. It was simply humanity showing the galaxy who they really were. They were survivors, they were builders, they were dreamers who refused to stop dreaming. And they were not to be underestimated. The lesson spread to every corner of the galaxy, passed down through generations of every species. Be kind to humans, for they will be kind in return. Work with humans, for they will lift you up alongside them. Welcome humans as friends, for there are no better allies in the universe. But never, under any circumstances, push them into a corner, because humanity knows how to push back. And they have been practicing for a very long time.